If you're over 60 and you're experiencing burning feet, numb toes, sensations like electric shocks, persistent tingling, or difficulties with balance, please understand that these are not merely odd or inevitable signs of growing older. They stem from a biological environment inside your body that has gradually shifted over many years, often without you noticing the changes as they happened. Most people are told that peripheral neuropathy simply means the nerves wear out with age, much like an old piece of machinery slowly breaking down over time. Others hear that it's something genetic, and there's very little that can truly be done about it. The overall message, whether stated directly or just strongly implied, is usually to focus on managing the pain as best as possible and to prepare yourself for a steady, ongoing worsening of the condition. What is so often left unexplained is that nerves do not deteriorate in a random or arbitrary way. They respond directly to the chemical conditions surrounding them, to the quality of their blood supply, and to the daily metabolic signals they receive. When that surrounding environment becomes harmful or hostile over a prolonged period, the nerves begin to struggle noticeably. But the reverse is also true. When that environment improves, even modestly, nerves can often hold on to far more function than most people expect or are led to believe. Peripheral neuropathy is not one specific disease on its own. Instead, it is a pattern of nerve damage that develops under certain conditions. It refers to what happens when the peripheral nerves, those long, extended pathways that connect the brain and spinal cord to every other part of the body, begin to malfunction. These nerves are responsible for carrying signals related to sensation, movement, balance, temperature regulation, and the perception of pain. Because they are exceptionally long and require a great deal of energy to function properly, they are particularly vulnerable to disruptions such as unstable blood sugar levels, inadequate circulation, chronic inflammation, and shortages of essential nutrients. This vulnerability is precisely why the symptoms tend to show up first, and often most severely, in the feet and hands, which are the farthest points from the heart and the most reliant on the tiniest blood vessels for nourishment and oxygen. One crucial point to understand is that nerve damage accumulates quietly and silently for a very long time before any obvious symptoms ever appear. For years, and in many cases even for decades, the nerves quietly endure ongoing but invisible metabolic stress without sending clear warning signals. During this hidden phase, the damage steadily progresses. Proteins within the nerve fibers become distorted, small blood vessels stiffen and lose flexibility, the protective myelin coating gradually thins, and the electrical signals traveling along the nerves slow down or lose their precision and reliability. For a while, the nervous system compensates remarkably well, masking these early problems and allowing daily life to continue without noticeable disruption. By the time clear symptoms like burning sensations, numbness, or unsteadiness finally emerge, the underlying damage is already quite substantial. This long delay is exactly why neuropathy so often feels sudden, unexpected, and deeply unfair, even though, in reality, it developed very gradually over an extended period. In a large number of cases, one of the primary culprits behind this process is a group of harmful compounds known as advanced glycation end products, or simply AGEs. These form when glucose molecules permanently attach themselves to proteins and fats throughout the body. This attachment is far from harmless. It fundamentally alters the structure and function of the affected tissues. Once created, AGEs are very difficult for the body to break down and remove, so they tend to build up and accumulate steadily over the years. They especially target tissues that depend on flexibility, precise signaling, and a robust network of tiny blood vessels, making peripheral nerves one of the most vulnerable and frequently affected targets. To really understand why AGEs play such a central and damaging role, it helps to look at the process on a molecular level. Glucose is absolutely essential as fuel for the body, but it is also a chemically reactive substance. When blood sugar levels remain elevated for extended periods, glucose molecules have more frequent opportunities to interact with proteins. Under the right, or rather, the wrong conditions, these interactions lead to the creation of permanent, rigid, sticky crosslinks between molecules. The process is somewhat similar to what happens when sugar caramelizes and hardens upon heating on a stove. In the human body, though, it occurs much more slowly and gradually, especially when glucose control is consistently poor. The end result is tissue that becomes less elastic, less able to perform its normal functions, and far more prone to inflammation and other problems. Within the peripheral nerves specifically, AGEs deliver a triple blow that affects multiple critical components at the same time. First, they directly alter the nerve fibers themselves, interfering with key proteins that are essential for transmitting electrical impulses smoothly and efficiently. Second, they damage the myelin sheath, the important fatty insulating layer that allows signals to travel quickly and reliably along the nerve. When myelin is compromised, signals slow down, become weakened, or get distorted in various ways. Third, and perhaps most critically, AGs injure the small blood vessels, the tiny capillaries, that deliver oxygen and vital nutrients directly to the nerves. These microvessels are absolutely essential for nerve survival and health. When they stiffen, narrow, or lose their ability to dilate properly, the nerves become chronically undernourished and progressively weakened. This combined triple effect helps explain the wide variety of symptoms people experience. The burning pain that comes from irritated and overactive nerve fibers, the numbness that results from signals being lost entirely, the tingling or pins and needles sensations caused by irregular or erratic firing, the weakness that arises from impaired commands reaching the muscles, and the balance problems stemming from unreliable sensory feedback reaching the brain. While the exact combination and severity of symptoms can vary from person to person, the underlying pattern is frequently quite consistent. A detail that is frequently overlooked is the fact that a standard fasting blood sugar test provides only a partial and limited picture of what's really happening. Many individuals with neuropathy are told their glucose levels are normal simply because their fasting readings fall within the accepted standard ranges. However, a fasting test captures only the daily low point after an overnight fast, not the damaging high peaks that occur after eating. The greatest danger for age formation actually comes during those post-meal periods, when blood sugar rises sharply and then lingers at elevated levels for hours. These repeated post-meal spikes are what drive much of the long-term nerve damage over time. As people age, the body naturally becomes less efficient at clearing glucose from the bloodstream after meals. Muscle mass tends to decline, insulin sensitivity decreases, and sugar remains elevated for longer periods following food intake. Importantly, this does not mean that aging itself directly causes neuropathy in every case. Rather, it means that aging reduces the body's overall metabolic resilience and ability to handle glucose effectively. When this natural age-related change combines with common modern lifestyle habits, such as frequent snacking throughout the day, eating late into the evening, and consuming large amounts of processed foods, it creates ideal conditions for ages to accumulate steadily. Vitamin B12 plays another absolutely vital role in protecting nerve health. It supports the ongoing maintenance of the myelin sheath, assists with DNA synthesis inside nerve cells, and helps clear away potentially harmful byproducts. Unfortunately, B12 absorption often declines with advancing age, and this problem is frequently made worse by commonly prescribed medications such as acid-blocking drugs and metformin. When B12 levels drop too low, a crucial protective mechanism for the nerves is removed, allowing damage to progress unchecked instead of being repaired or mitigated. Standard blood tests can sometimes miss what is known as functional B12 deficiency. The measured levels might appear normal on paper, yet still fall short of what the nerves actually require for optimal function. This subtle gap leaves many people vulnerable for years without them, or their doctors, fully realizing it. By the time noticeable symptoms finally appear, the deficiency may have been present and contributing for a very long time. Another often ignored source of trouble is dietary ages. While ages certainly form inside the body through poor glucose control, they also enter directly from the foods we eat. Cooking methods that involve very high heat, such as grilling, frying, roasting, broiling, or browning, generate large quantities of preformed ages in food. Once consumed, these are absorbed into the bloodstream and add significantly to the body's overall age burden. Even when blood sugar control is otherwise reasonably good, certain everyday cooking habits can accelerate tissue damage. Making a shift toward gentler, lower heat cooking techniques, such as steaming, poaching, or slow cooking, can substantially reduce this external intake of ages with relatively little effort. Once nerve damage has begun, inflammation steps in to amplify and perpetuate the problem. Ages activate specific receptors that set off inflammatory cascades throughout the body. These cascades sustain ongoing nerve irritation and create a feedback loop. This inflammatory process helps explain why symptoms frequently become worse at night, when circulation naturally slows and inflammatory mediators have more time to linger and accumulate. It also illustrates how neuropathy can severely disrupt sleep patterns, setting up a vicious cycle. Poor sleep worsens insulin resistance, raises stress hormones, leads to higher sugar spikes the next day, generates even more ages and inflammation, and ultimately harms sleep further. Physical movement stands out as one of the most powerful and accessible ways to interrupt this damaging cycle. Active muscles naturally pull glucose out of the bloodstream after meals, helping to lower those harmful post-meal spikes. Even relatively brief walks, nothing intense or prolonged, can make a substantial difference in reducing post-meal sugar levels. The primary benefit here is not about dramatic weight loss or athletic-level exercise. It's about achieving better day-to-day metabolic regulation. Consistent, regular activity lowers the raw material available for age formation and simultaneously improves blood flow to the nerves themselves. Maintaining muscle strength is equally important in the long run. As muscle mass decreases with age or inactivity, the body's ability to take up and store glucose weakens noticeably. Incorporating light resistance exercises helps preserve muscle tissue, supports overall metabolism, and provides indirect but meaningful protection for the nerves. This particular benefit is often underappreciated because it develops slowly and steadily rather than delivering immediate, obvious results. Proper hydration also plays a supportive role by maintaining good circulation and helping the body clear away metabolic waste products. When dehydration occurs, even mildly, it thickens the blood, reduces flow through the smallest vessels, and causes glucose to become more concentrated. Many older adults gradually drink less fluid without realizing it, which subtly increases the risk to nerve health. Making a habit of consistent, adequate fluid intake is a simple way to bolster vascular health with almost no extra effort. Chronic stress influences neuropathy through its effects on hormones. Prolonged stress elevates cortisol levels, which in turn raise blood sugar and promote greater insulin resistance. While stress by itself does not directly cause neuropathy, it significantly worsens the metabolic conditions that make nerve damage more likely and more severe. Incorporating simple, practical stress reduction techniques can ease this additional burden and contribute to greater overall stability. Perhaps one of the most damaging misconceptions surrounding peripheral neuropathy is the idea that its progression is completely inevitable and unstoppable. This widespread belief discourages people from taking meaningful action and often leads to a passive acceptance of steady decline. While nerves that have suffered severe, long-standing damage may never return to perfect condition, many that are only partially affected can stabilize remarkably well and regain better function when placed in a more supportive internal environment. Countless individuals report noticeable reductions in pain intensity, improvements in balance, better quality of sleep, and an overall higher quality of life once the rate of new damage slows or stops entirely. The real goal here is not perfection or a complete cure. It's consistent protection of the nerves that remain. Every stretch of time with stable blood sugar represents a period free from ongoing chemical assault on the nerves. Each night of improved, restorative sleep provides valuable support for natural repair processes. Each reduction in systemic inflammation helps restore clearer signaling. Over months and years, these modest, incremental improvements add up in much the same way that the earlier losses accumulated, slowly but powerfully. And that ability to influence the process matters enormously. The efficient clearance of glucose from the blood depends heavily on the presence of adequate muscle tissue. After a meal, insulin signals the muscles to absorb and store excess sugar. When muscle mass declines, as it so often does with age and reduced activity, this clearance process becomes less effective. Glucose lingers in the bloodstream for longer periods, extending the time available for harmful glycation reactions to occur. This dynamic helps explain why the risk of neuropathy increases noticeably with age, even among people who have not gained significant weight. Even individuals who appear lean and outwardly healthy may have experienced substantial losses in muscle mass, particularly if they have not engaged in any form of regular strength training. This strong connection between muscle tissue and glucose handling also underscores why regular physical activity offers such robust protection for the nerves, even when major dietary overhauls are not yet in place. Taking regular short walks after meals, for example, can meaningfully reduce both the height and the duration of those post-meal glucose spikes. Over the course of months and then years, this simple practice leads to lower overall age accumulation, reduced inflammation, and improved circulation to the nerves. The benefits often begin modestly and build gradually, but they target the root metabolic causes far more directly than approaches focused purely on symptom relief. The vascular system holds a central position in the entire picture as well. Peripheral nerves depend on an intricate and delicate network of very small blood vessels that are highly susceptible to damage from glycation and oxidative stress. Ages cause the walls of these vessels to stiffen, reduce the production of beneficial nitric oxide, and impair the normal ability of vessels to dilate when needed. The result is chronic, mild underoxygenation and nutrient shortage, particularly in the most distant nerves. The feet tend to show symptoms first, not because the nerves there are inherently more fragile, but simply because they are located farthest from the heart and the main sources of blood supply. This vascular dimension also accounts for why symptoms frequently worsen during cold weather or at night, when blood flow naturally decreases further. It further explains why a history of smoking significantly raises the long-term risk. Vascular damage from past smoking persists for years and compounds the ongoing metabolic injury to the nerves. Inflammation weaves through every stage of this process like a connecting thread. Ages bind to specific receptors that initiate powerful inflammatory cascades. These cascades increase oxidative stress, disrupt energy production inside nerve cells, and worsen insulin resistance. Inflammation is both a consequence of existing damage and a driver of additional damage, creating a self-reinforcing cycle. This helps explain why neuropathy symptoms can sometimes accelerate after they first appear, even in the absence of obvious negative lifestyle changes. Sleep functions as one of the body's most critical periods for repair and recovery. During deep, high-quality sleep, systemic inflammation naturally decreases, insulin sensitivity improves, and various growth factors are released to support tissue maintenance and repair. When neuropathy severely disrupts sleep, it shortens this essential nightly recovery window. Over time, consistently poor sleep undermines metabolic control and accelerates further nerve damage. Because of this bidirectional relationship, even modest improvements in sleep quality can produce surprisingly significant benefits for nerve health and overall well-being. Emotional and psychological factors also deserve careful attention. Living with persistent pain, constant worry about progression, and fear of further decline can naturally trigger anxiety, low mood, or even depression in some cases. These emotional responses disrupt sleep further, elevate stress hormones, and reduce motivation for consistent self-care. Another cycle emerges, one that is psychological in nature but has profoundly physical consequences. Breaking this cycle calls for compassion toward oneself, appropriate support from others, and realistic expectations rather than harsh self-criticism. It is wise to track progress over weeks and months rather than expecting dramatic changes from day to day. Nerve recovery and adaptation occur slowly. Metabolic improvements require consistent time to take hold. Normal fluctuations will happen along the way. A single challenging day or even a difficult week does not erase the overall forward movement. Keeping attention on longer-term trends provides the most accurate and encouraging perspective while helping to avoid unnecessary discouragement. In cases of more advanced neuropathy, the central aim shifts toward preserving as much of the remaining nerve function as possible. Simply halting or significantly slowing any further loss can dramatically enhance daily life and independence. Reductions in pain intensity, improvements in sleep quality, and greater stability while standing or walking all contribute to a greater sense of autonomy and confidence. These gains matter deeply, even when full restoration of sensation is not achievable. Aging also gradually weakens the vital connections between nerves and muscles. Motor nerves slowly withdraw from some muscle fibers, leaving portions of muscle under-innervated and less responsive. Although surviving nerves attempt to compensate by sprouting new connections, there are natural limits to this process. Over time, this leads to reduced precision in movement, declining balance, and weaker nerve muscle signaling overall. The result is an elevated risk of falls, which in turn often leads to reduced physical activity, further muscle loss, and a worsening of metabolic health, a classic downward spiral. It is worthwhile to pay close attention to certain key nutrients that directly support nerve health and function. A deficiency in vitamin B12, for instance, can closely mimic or significantly worsen neuropathy symptoms. Magnesium plays an important role in nerve signaling and promoting relaxation. While supplements should always involve proper testing and guidance from a healthcare provider, identifying and correcting any reversible deficiencies can make a real difference in supporting nerve resilience. Hydration has a direct impact on blood viscosity and microcirculation. Even mild chronic dehydration can restrict flow through the smallest vessels and reduce oxygen delivery to nerves. As people age, the sensation of thirst often becomes less reliable, increasing the risk of inadequate fluid intake. Maintaining consistent, adequate hydration throughout the day is a straightforward way to strengthen circulation and support nerve health. The most powerful and liberating concept to hold on to is this: neuropathy is a medical condition you are living with. It is not your entire identity. You remain a complete person with a unique history, valued relationships, personal abilities, interests, and aspirations. Maintaining this broader perspective helps prevent the condition from dominating or defining your life any more than is truly necessary. B vitamin status merits early and ongoing attention. Routine monitoring of B12, folate, and B6 levels, especially after age 50 or when taking medications such as metformin or acid suppressors, can catch deficiencies before they seriously impact nerve health. Early correction, whether through dietary adjustments, sublingual forms, or injections when medically appropriate, helps reinforce myelin preservation and supports the repair processes that enhance nerve resilience over time. Prevention does not require flawless execution or a complete absence of any decline. It is about steadily accumulating small protective factors year after year so that the overall downward slope flattens considerably and remains much gentler. Someone in their 70s or 80s who experiences only mild, occasional tingling, maintains solid balance, and retains reasonable sensation in their feet has typically followed these principles quietly and consistently for decades, not through extreme measures, but through steady, sustainable habits. None of the information presented here is secret, overly complicated, or inaccessible. It draws directly from decades of solid scientific research into metabolism, glycation processes, chronic inflammation, nerve physiology, and healthy aging. What has often been missing is a clear, practical, and compassionate explanation of how all these elements interconnect, especially for people over 60 who are either experiencing early symptoms themselves or supporting loved ones through the condition. Peripheral neuropathy does not have to remain a mysterious, frightening, or unstoppable diagnosis. At its core, it is a delayed signal, a clear but belated alert that the internal environment has drifted too far from optimal balance for too long a time. The truly encouraging reality is that the very same internal environment that has permitted damage to occur can, in most cases, be gently and persistently guided back toward conditions that slow further damage, promote stabilization, and sometimes allow partial restoration of function in the nerves that remain viable. You do not need to reverse decades of gradual change in a single moment or through dramatic upheaval. What is required is simply to stop adding to the problem starting right now, and then to continue making that same choice tomorrow and the day after and beyond. Every hour of more balanced blood sugar, every gentle walk after a meal, every night of deeper and more restorative sleep, every modest reduction in inflammation represents a small but real vote cast in favor of preserving nerve function. Over the course of months, years, and decades, those individual votes accumulate in powerful ways. They may not completely erase all existing damage, but they have the capacity to rewrite the long-term narrative, from one of inevitable and relentless worsening to one of managed stability and greater control, from resignation and helplessness to genuine realistic hope, from a sense of having no options to a clear recognition of real personal agency. That fundamental shift from the discouraging belief that nothing can be done to the empowering understanding that I can influence a great deal is precisely where the most meaningful and lasting change truly begins.